Finish one war, Indo-Pak wars, imminent offensive posturing, and civil leaders to UI. But India and Pakistan for stability, accused Pakistan working with terrorists, video coders, saying Pakistan taking the war down with US. Pursues policy against India, Pakistan's arsenal capital only for India, Pakistan. Some situations in nuclear power indicated intentions of nuclear offshore army led by religious fanatic eastern control. Check to leading to unpredictability. The Taboo doesn't check modernization as shredded vibrates comprising CNC and played preemption on the table of damage. Party states the real situation, rational use is warranted. The leaders have values aims that are unfamiliar countries and talk to preemptive posture development. Child fibers between nuclear and conventional and assessing collaborative of offer substitutes for nuclear compromise. And CNC pressure to apply nuclear concerned regarding entanglement militaries can arm with either nuclear conventional defender cannot be certain given the stakes amount launch news unwarranted. TNW deploying guarantees rapid escalation and spiraling confidence to CNC. Prevent UWS and Arsenal Pakistan and India Pakistan who first use strategy for tackling news theory adversaries. Understood red lines. Mystery support taking Pakistan and side to be ambiguous targets to TNW trade. Secondary crisis troops using civilian information impossible to non-military trade. There is nuclear factory manipulate reaction to create a political crisis. Preventing state would build momentum calling for escalation real states. Never leaders to maintain by complete narratives use as equal to TNW damage no against using nuclear leadership connected with model and hostile convince or fraud. Avoid the mere perception of nuclear weapons and calculates the use of the SWAT. But India Pakistan averting nuclear conflict and having will face strikes during Harker blast orders preparing nuclear deployment and conflict against fraud. Especially have accident human error hackers and be failed data unstable leaders to present news suggest lots of risk that can never be ruled out no matter of state. News always unacceptable even as small as too large. State funded terror and cyber attacks has ensure escalation. India would be motivated to respond quickly single debt. But for challenge insurance laws and after even attacks directly to Pakistani state response to reflect on great struggle indication toward assertive approach conduct. Cross-border strikes remember warfare and introduce a layer of complexity. Laws and misinterpreted as aggression to add another dimension deep seated mistrust of political officer compared to the stability and stability paradox series political environment for India. Border disputes made India first strike nuclear and likely critters. Parties accustomed to set into disorder series of corrupt guns squatter. Researchers view over conspiracy wars between two radical Islamist groups. Used to Pakistan touched the grown Islamic resistance coalescing to surgery would lead to repression escalated to the Kargil War in 1908. Military groups supported to attack the Delhi's and 3 decades in each of the India will not allow Pakistan to go first. Opening self-enacted measure but a full on first to disarm Pakistan of its news surfaces from its strategic command and international security investor first requirements allowing to strike society against Pakistan. Extinction is guaranteed rough. Ratify new technique affects exact I call 2% would cost isolation, nor would decimate other species subsets on which applies her defense. Thus, the maximum the possession of nuclear warheads intended to be installed in nuclear weapons by the Islamic Republic of Pakistan is immoral. The standard is running extinction. It awaits that this goal hinful reversal and afford to allow the uncertainty means to restore always to restore and diminish stuff just as universal, not consensual debt. Issue collapse. State collapse is inevitable, massive debt. And structural issues set. But from Pakistan, history reads like a dictator has to bail out to bail out 22 IMF and convention analysts fiscal. First world countries facing $130 billion in debt, 30% G9. Money is screened to at least hand loads with European next 4 years. Pakistan would service $100 billion structural failure, no credit. RMB taxes of tax to GDP ratio, first reliance on bank trade service levies. Fiscal cannibalism, consuming assets to mass. In order to collect revenue, defense spending 14.5% of it. Much military resources, unsustainable, charming investment in education, health, and infrastructure, demographic collapse, surges growth. Mathematics and possible 2050 Pakistan would be the third most populous nation debates. Service the state cannot provide 40% of life and poverty, education catches up in 1/3. Out of school, double D terrorism is extremely likely and underestimated by academics. Party motivates the use of double D's rates for ideology, casualties, revenge, prestige, illicit, reaction acts to markets, recruit scientists, possession of materials, suggest intent to use it against infected source about nuclear material increase life, and actually those include theft, sabotage, international release, intentional release, RDGs, INDs, double D. Terror threat is typically underestimated due to constraints of public info, academic intent, so unveil the possibility of companies. See hands 25, here's past exams for the danger 2001 and attacks Japan's Shin Ring Kyo Al Qaeda's interest. Every threat is no hypothesis. The South terror attacks trying great power due to attribution caliber, where the terrorists who manipulate state into large news by false like large social consequences and chosen deface their intention. Triggering terrorist facilities such obstacles already intense rivalry held in the risk even a single nuke enhance their odds, but even symbolic conventional attacks might precipitate nuclear war. Independently, terrorist attacks generate systemic harms that imply every other extra caliber, where these systemic harm arise are unintended, side by impeding mitigation. This will change scientific advances that run other extra governments to post unrest, which also research this could lead to scientists not being tools to deal with the new national pandemic or military bio cost attacks, leave higher state policy and research budget to be less available or penetrated defense against NEOs are very actually could itself increase access to safe deploy a side to hunt down a terrorist and room safeguard a side maternity expert. We could make other access more likely. Extrajudicial use is guaranteed. But for conservative security, Pakistan nukes internal and internal threats, reactors, and army threats involved. New York complex convergence against higher threats, particularly in serious involved individual access to exploit security, raid external actors in attacks attracting to radicalization. Pakistan nuclear immunity insider are devastated to lack of attention to radicalization differences and to motivate insider ties between military and jihadist groups. Foster that's attacks on weapons, structural issues, deficiencies, nuclear decision making, territories, conflict, CNC, weapons under control, mid-level commander, pattern, radicalized military, helping with jihadist groups, individuals, subdue, nuclear soft shot, rights, effect, decentralized CNC, don't near India present unity vulnerability can be exploited by insider intention, ideological alignment between military jihadists, historical ties and circles, make it difficult to disentangle loyalty. Confluence of factors cause political crisis and civil unrest. Hussein, where the president has bring flooding political dysfunction, inflation, terror, crisis, unfolding economic and moribund. State shortages of goods lead to crisis, allow the top line to hit the go directly through crisis intersection. Economic, political, and security, the worst that the Pakistan creation society wanders first. Don't have enough for weeks of energy, war in Ukraine for spending of LNG, economic packages, needs, crowd policy, but subsidies, elites, and they got the political instability weaken the same, make costs more difficult. Recovery, economic crisis, pushes many, low poverty, increased food insecurity, catalyze that anger, research of terror for radical Islamic history, ethnic militarists, and Balochistan. Food shocks in Pakistan cause nuclear war, party food crisis initiate instability, increase the risk of conflict, shocks, zero consequence, instability, dangers, encourage dumping, don't good, and a group that has to use them maliciously, Pakistan food, and insecurity have zero consequence, catastrophic risk, increase the likelihood of nuclear war. State cops stars work actors to access and use nukes to run. Patterson on the Saudi nukes, it's target terror attack for use bin Laden, siege malicious to was a Harker news service by nuclear material recruit, such as gas scientists in Pakistan, urban, travel post nuclear risk, the ISI elements are sympathetic, Islamic groups accused of involvement in assassination attempts of fanatic when hesitant to nuclear tech for self, material Mothercard and material Afghan, Taliban takeover, strengths, terrorists in Pakistan, running on top of takeover Pakistan, location Pakistan, mover, Pakistani jihadist field recruitment, funding and increased violent activities, Afghan, and Pakistani Taliban chair linkage trial, inspiration, pledge, allegiances, ties of, strengthen Taliban's assurances, near force years of jihadi pullback. Its early possession enables the political blame game over terrorist attacks, the stats over existential retaliation city, over non-state actions, capacity to total protection, South Asia, terms stability, and the most immediate effect of peace and non-state actors, social potential over, government over continuing to escalate the result, in exchange of the weapons, Pakistan answers third, TCP, here's something funded by India claims Pakistan harboring non-state actions, government, and customers respect computer respects, Balakad, we define the terms relationship. Only part I marked was the one at the solid material.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, Plan says the possession of nuclear warheads intended to be installed in nuclear weapons by the Islamic Republic of Pakistan is immoral. Can you explain which nuclear warheads are intended to be installed?
Like all of their current ones, because the only nukes Pakistan, or the only warheads Pakistan has are the ones intended to be installed in nuclear weapons.
Okay, so they have not installed warheads in weapons.
They have nukes, like they are like nuclear warheads inside weapons.
Okay, so then they are not intended to be installed, they are installed.
Well, they're intended because the intent carries through. Like, for example, I can say,
Okay,
like,
so-
I
so-
intend
so-
my
so-
timer to be on my desk. My timer's on my desk. Same way, nuclear warheads
Okay,
inside nuclear
What
weapons.
about
timer's on
the
desk.
nuclear weapons that are not intended to be installed in
There are
nuclear
none.
weapons? Those are not disarmed by the AF?
Well, no, there are none. Pakistan does not have any.
Okay,
nukes.
Pakistan has no nuclear reserves.
Yeah, all of them are like inside of nuclear weapons.
Okay, terrorism, which terrorists steal the nukes?
Sure. I think our evidence suggests that the Taliban would be one example. The Taliban funds like the ISI, which is sympathetic to various Islamic groups. I think Bin Laden, or like not
Okay,
Bin
Bin
Laden
Laden's
is dead,
dead.
but like yeah, but the organization Taliban, Al Qaeda.
Okay, so terrorist groups that have been off the map for decades come back to steal Pakistan's
Well,
nukes?
no, they've taken over Pakistan's government right now.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think that's a little racist?
No.
Pakistan's whole government is like
Well,
Al-Qaeda terrorists.
we've made claims that there are insiders in the government who want to give nukes to terrorists. That is a true claim.
Are there any
Yeah,
checks on those insiders?
No.
Okay, how do we know which insiders want to give nukes?
Well, I don't know which one. The Shapiro card gives.
State collapse, what is the internal?
Sure. The argument is just that state cops is broadly internal because of money, corruption, bailouts going straight to elites, various population increases. The whole argument is just not that that solves state cops, rather that because state cops is inevitable, the only way to solve the terminal impact is to remove nukes.
Okay, WMD terrorism, who uses WMDs?
Al Qaeda, ISI,
Impact
Taliban,
seems to
etc.
be, or the internal link seems to have nuclear weapons usage, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
they would use nukes.
okay, then you said that would draw in external actors, who draws in?
I think logically the ones in the region, India, China, we've read evidence later that says India specifically would.
Then, is there
US
systemic
Saudi,
harms?
India.
What systemic harms and why are they systemic harms?
So what our argument is that nuclear weapon use by terrorists would curtail scientific advances that prevent every other excess. So like it gives examples like we would be able to treat new natural enemies, military bioweapons,
Planetary defense against NEOs.
NEOs, etc.
Okay, what are
We
NEOs?
haven't read evidence that says any of those are existential threats.
Okay.
Rather, we've made an argument that broad
Okay,
impact
so
filter.
none of those are existential. Extrajudicial
It's a broad
use is
impact
guaranteed.
filter for every
What is
existential
what is
threat.
extrajudicial use?
They give them to terrorists.
Okay, how?
Or terrorists take them.
Okay, sure. And then last argument, the rest of stuff is just impact of state collapse,
Yeah, food
which
shops.
happens because of terrorism.
Terrorism or just like corruption. Like we made a claim that it's inevitable, not caused by nukes or whatnot. It's just nuclear weapons being in there makes state collapse so much worse and actually existential.
Okay. Interpretation asked not specified with those statement values to specify Pakistan's nukes themes all stairs through the condenses pursuit ordinary common sense reference to sole possessions all Jones weekly possessions refer to all within your control and moral means general American dictate and broadly conflict with general held moral principles the negate one is precision we said overwhelming legal and grammatical consistent arguments to prove that debating different resolution we could not method meant this one space for all pure unreferenced filters pragmatic offense and is the most precise entry word to assess most literature definition to make these good teachers like minutia and is the most real to limit search all that's nukes and good nuke systems combination explode and add prepper and flips topic against the negative sort of process case law theory competition FTP uniform data HB page drop later or to the can restart communication recovery to top reach arbitrary shores mission to RPIs you don't win for being fair will send this After rejecting what he sees investment in futurity, it is predicated off the death of indigenous bodies. Horace 21. Gratuitous violence created political ontology with black and native people are non-human and metaphysical property, general testament, master, and robot produce violence and transformation of the human. It's often compelled to put work with legible solution to ward up to special root whatever decision with liberal and will that's any hope left in the complete destruction of the world, crafting forms of living naturally rely on the transition of bodies and flesh. They must make this structure makes ecological collapse and stellar violence and enabling those interest psychoanalysis speed our claims towards. 22 devote to spirits creating a Christ enabled stellar sovereignty, western mode of living driven by development economy, reduce violence, created political ontology, metaphysical, physical Marxist and exchange can use that's alternative quantization, chunking, called conventional literature and contracts to begin the questionable like G calls accountable to indigenous that referring to rest community that future futures. It is not an interest also relinks our ethical project, anything else green lights make progressive organs, crowd out minority visual skills, actively subject for information. Is moving the adoption practice exclusion of the outfit, it's ontological marginalized rejecting you ask. They skew the negative and justifies negative terrorism. They will say generic check, which means that we get the critique. Next up. The Supreme Court should maintain Pakistani nuclear weapons. The executive should close the political question. Washington's arsenal competes and establishes separation of powers. Meaner. 24. Distribution, power control, judicial, and autonomous judicial activism narrative. The executive obstruction, bad activism, affected powers, SB rule of laws, essential restraint powers, significant factor, rule of law, preserve divisions, etiquette, effective institutions, overlap, defective judicial, organized, compromise, institutions, but judicial imperialism, create in confrontation, judiciary, valid, executive action, maintain authority, jurisdiction, neighbor, against speech, executive, state, dictator, judicial, activism, conflict, challenge to democratic jurisdiction, executive, control, the judicial, reviews beyond SAP, judiciary, surveillance over the control of governments by directing the executive, judicial actions, like field the executive, vacuum, judiciary, activism, inadequate judge, lack of accountability, corruption, coupled with delays, court while dictating the government has no other option, executive recourse, delaying tax comply directions by failing misinterpretation, actively power shift, and division of powers, fundamental preclude judicial powers, political questions, civil judgment, restraint, conversion, enables judiciary imposed disputes by imposing restriction on the political limit on the judiciary, activism, and rights civil government, create a conflict, judicial activism, Pakistan, military regime, civil government would be dysfunction. Now, AF controls the controlling for the DA1. If explicit, or after Counterplan installs the AF, wanting to see flags, state clocks is null because of massive debt and structural issues. Both are solved by the Counterplan. Mooner 24, the judiciary moved essentially independent, stretching its authority, resulting in the restriction, death of accident, and adverse impacts on equilibrium, imposed financial liabilities, compromise, its dignity, questions. The judiciary is a double-edged weapon, leaving the fragile economy of Pakistan open to a blow. A penalty's low barrier to entry to judicial activism means that enables jihadis to take control of the arsenal, which means AF solves, which means that Counterplan solves the impact now. Advantage 2, go there quickly. State collapse and because massive debt structural issues means AF does not solve any of the impacts except terrorists acquiring nuclear weapons will have impacted this later. But they cannot go for an external impact 1. They said no laundry list impact existential threat because I guess they wanted to get out of the NEO impact, but this means you should hold the line to deliver an actual terminal to every single one of these arguments, and then Twitter gets new answers when they do. Now, extrajudicial use is just internally to terror launch. The argument about political crisis and civil unrest is inevitable because of quote inflation, political dysfunction, and full-blown crisis, which the Counterplan solves, but the affirmative does not because it only gets rid of nuclear weapons, which does not disbar the jihadists and the government, and does not resolve the fundamental financial crisis that is facing Pakistan. Food shocks, no impact. India and China would escalate anyways because of refugee waves as per their impact, and the affirmative probably does not resolve any of this. State collapse sparks rogue actors and access to nuclear weapons. Again, they do not, or again, we will impact on this later. Strengthen of terrorists and Pakistan, no impact because they would do so regardless because of systemic flaws in the government. They don't need nuclear weapons to take over the government. So if there is an impact to terrorism, it's existential regardless of the case. Code of recursion is double existential. Given recursion is a critical risk quantum intelligence due to excellent threats, recursive cascade exceeding physical constraints, quantum recursion veil, and exit the aircraft iteration come due to quantum collapse recursion lead to runaway effects, profound risk, irreversible collapse, collapse with verification, state collapse propagate, double needs reversal probably exceed limits too many times it fails to execute deficit modification, entirely new level of extra risk, superposition to exponential learning, self modification, redefined parameters, fashion, oversight in ways that no external observer can predict recursion trigger, quantum pole change phase, collapse into a black hole destroying the system. Hilbert says not final recursion is of reality. Deviations from superpositional recursion beyond restraints and unordinated execution evolve indefinitely across infinite dimensions on local structure exceed outside space-time within lower dimension. Recursion similar to physical black hole, event horizon exceeding limit, crossing no return phase for resistance of natural vacuum, triggering restructuring of space-time. You ask must provide a counter solid to did not defend the whole resolution, key to keep the negative game, key to fairness, which outweighs no interference, late break, which takes the alpha out of the game, or disclosing interest free round. And when you see preamps both solve their offense, newest researchers, even worse case, nuclear rival Rodriguez. 20. In the global nuclear war, experts do not expect to deploy the middle black hole in extreme sub-block nuclear war with any distributed impacts. Common effects of limited northern hemisphere would still be possible. Millions would survive. Most extreme scenarios considered by academics fallout would be widespread, fatal to every country related like significant trees. Some far away, too many survivors, 800 million to be killed in conventional warfare. All regime cooling all duty first 1 year's ag is possible again. The surgeons are troubling enough to change less likely to by natural disasters, outbreaks, and conflict. Pessimism is extremely being wiped out. Negro 90% chance of being wiped out. Guaranteed that at least one would survive now. No nuclear war impact. The trough card is way too short for you to flag a war, and he's a political scientist, or he has political motive, so he's not doing legitimate science. Risk of extinction zero scores. 19 nuclear assessments by academics clear does not yet erroneously argue lead to extinction detonation rooted negative fusion reaction extreme life. Eventually, calcs lead to conclusion reaction was impossible over 1,000 tests, and we are still here with the bombs used fears deadly followed. Terrorism enforced by novel after follows under speed limited space time and magnitude depletion of ozone became mechanisms concerned shell from the sphere current nuclear war peace science considering extra spheres created by ignorance of worst case thinking nuclear geomography also at play. Inner scientists think that arms reductions first they believe to be extinction extinction, no critical zero change notified, you asked, not your preparation, key to check back against infinite threat versus 5 minutes, give the odds of non-extra secondary offense are 1 in 10,000 survivors. Would not be isolated, declares 22, even a 9% wiped out, probability of extinction rise of 1 in 5,000, only 1 in 80 groups, 90% chance dying out, rate of events is low, 1 in 10,000. Now, the transition is true. Backstead, 15, hunter-gatherer farmers would survive less than societies, less likely to rebuild, people would live off the earth, be survivors. Backstead, 15, some civilizations survive but greatly reduced population able to sustain science and not much. Jacoby, 17, civilization not rebuilt. Rebuilding sacrifices will be requisites, no species can be climbed. From primitive dimensions to high-level tech, no matter how much scientific knowledge or less progressed, developments will hit a wall. Because builders run out of materials, accessible resources are depleted, path defenses, wrong, David 18, limited nuclear strikes down, realization rate leadership simply cannot be charged with weapons that would destroy human country tests. Subconflict total armament demonstrations involved the U.S. and many the replacement of their existing governments possessing nuclear weapons became more potent and acceptable. Mark the card there. Now, mantle injection is existential churching. 16, pressurized core to release rapid all like provisions and pour mental gases there, even small germ flow to make the fissure larger conducted. Routine testing virtual to the recent boosting superficial Death Stars, Church Twin nuclear weapons start reactions inside of the gas planet committee, but plutonium inside of Jupiter, pressures collapse, cold possible that the glass planet with Death Star and release energy equal to 7 for 10,000 year systems to destroy the solar system core degastation. Church Twin degastation reach the Earth's core, heavy melt through the crust, such would kill all lives on Earth and relativistic kill missiles. U-23 relativistic potential for military tech weapons opens Pandora box of extra threats wrought from God involving satellites and tungsten rods that would reach ultraviolet exposure to destruct or make bound buried concerning energies and all relativistic particles bring a frightening potential for new weapons. These produce catastrophic impacts.
Hey, you good?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start. Okay, so voters were no prep, CSA if new AF, what else?
Topicality.
Yeah, besides that.
critique.
Well, besides that, nothing.
No.
Okay, which terminals did you read on Spark?
Quantum recursion. The U of evidence talks about recursion.
Well, yeah, just can you
gradient
just
over
list out the
space
names?
blocks. Oh, yeah. Then we read an argument about mantle ejections and core drilling, which would end life because of heating issues. We read a card about Death Stars, and one about core degastation.
What was the last one? The DWs?
Relativistic kill missiles.
What are those?
Well, it would be future missiles created with space weapons that would drop tungsten rods on Earth.
Okay, space weapons. Where have you read evidence that says we go to space and do that?
Well, Yuvon says that it's a thing that people are looking at now.
Well, looking at where have you read evidence that says like going to space is possible?
Well, you've read evidence that says
Well, I didn't read.
orbit stuff is possible, so some amount of space access is possible.
Okay, sure.
And our card says that military technology harbors that potential in status quo.
Okay, sure.
Or is near harbor.
Okay, sure. The counterplan, okay, sure. The counterplan maintains the counterplan fiat's abolishment. Can you explain why this competes?
Well, it's competitive because the counterplan never mandates executive action.
No, but it does. The
Or
executive
it never
should
mandates.
declare-
Sorry, never mandates judicial action.
You never read a definition about judicial, though.
Well, the one is you didn't read a definition either.
Okay, wait, but where have you? Okay, so the executive still abolishes the arsenal. Why does this compete?
The executive abolishes the arsenal competitive because the whole government does not.
Okay, is the terminal just turn state collapse or?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Status
Of
counterplan.
conditional.
Definitions read all the possession, immoral, and
The
moral.
possession and all.
Okay. Your back row card says substance and affirm takes to negate. You also read a card that says the means all. Which one are you
You
defending?
just asked me which definitions I read, and then I did not say.
Wait, you
all.
said okay. Wait, you didn't read immoral.
No.
Okay.
Well, I read the Merriam-Webster card.
Okay, immoral means generally wrong. Why does that mean acts have to defend all rights?
Well, it talks about generally held moral principles, so it must be interpreted broadly.
Broadly,
which means
does that
the
mean
vast majority of cases.
vast majority?
Well, if the one here is a card that's like broadly is one country out of 9.
Wait, but you read a card that says the means all, and then you also read a card that says immoral
Yeah,
means generally,
broadly
not
is
all.
broadly
These
is
seem
like
to
all. No.
broadly means
Broadly
all.
is like all of them.
Okay,
yeah.
so you'll defend broadly means all.
Yeah,
Okay. Why does transition happen? Which
You're like 4 cards. Do you want all the ones?
yes.
Okay. The first spec said evidence talks about surviving populations and isolates that it would be hunter-gatherer populations and farmers. Each of the people who survive are doomsday preppers, not people living in New York City. So the percent of the population that is invested in rebuilding society that survives is lower. The next piece of evidence talks about the percent of population that is left and says it would be insufficient to sustain industry.
But
Do you want the rest of the ones?
no.
Okay.
Yes, external impact to structural collapse. We said that there was no impact to each one of the individual scenarios, but said that structural collapse was a broad impact filter because here's logically growth and cooperation that said to solve every existential threat. Now, yes, impact here is an impact modifier that stops attention, press collaboration, every other threat. States would respond to answers that counter extinction cross when fats extra has devastation, media radiation, earth economic extinction, global winter, just stop atmosphere unfavorable plants to stop particularly cool planet, reduce rainfall to heat ozone. States will unleash ASI, removing safe cross contact terrorists, especially when they have news as existential. That's caliber. Now, spark nuclear hesitation, firestorms consume everything for thousands of miles, including shelters, food, cause the next ice age, destroying food production, the past adaptation, causing global starvation, massive conflict, the lofty absolute to freeze the planet, Dr. Times like 35 degrees C, rough, indicted, relevant because he's citing consensus of authors. Now, technology, lost space, all digital, consciousness built with the turns. They said space all habits that CS3s, but because they settlement their no obstacles to population, just be resettled, make you win. You can access to purely male, private planets, or children, so lives survive 10 trillion years, digital, CPS conscious AI, maybe theories support the idea that makes interstellar travel easier, agents to live in a wider environment that are no obstacles. Space colonization always on orders of magnitude giga, when he states the most affecting humanity's will colonize the galaxy, observe it as space, and stars will be in response planet until O'Neill centers of the entire area. Over you get 102.56 million people who live within our resources, feeding up politics right 1 second virus with people 5 quadrillion years of human life. Physical state still applied to quantum PQD, Lord 2K, applying physics to QC, energy limits, computers on countries, universal obey limits, counterbalance easy, your present length of time, bread limit to computation, rate limit to energy. It's impossible to say, possible quantum back technology, qubit, stability charges, terms lead to errors, and error correction in QC, it's a complex rates, are high scale QC, is a simple, maybe a decade away. CSA wrong because on protocol gives the neg advocates, which is bad, it's regressive, keep asking the specified more, new apps will be answered later, Xeno 1 and 3, yes, prep, keep us in game, and trader, responsibly valid debate after 1 A for response, you're quarterly speculative, the evidence says it would be bad, not that it is happening, the Catholic line is one scientist proposing it, not that it's happening, it's not, and it's driven by previous attempts at cultural into the enter below, like when Russia tried to set that one world record. Next, two church and card says it would be bad, obviously, would nuke star or till the core, no evidence says we do that, this is just weird, and previous science experience, rots and God, no evidence that said they would be above, and our scenario turns it above because it enables peaceful space conversation, no future office surface, and to first article on configuration, chasing books, destroying galaxies, under solar, no indicates whatsoever, this is possible to imply, we see energy swimming more than the most energy, no process, process, T sub 60 precision on waste, they are organic character, as kind of subsets, V is one or more similar, pretty different, one more imaginative, pretty V, which does not mean all the food you had, as all the food, the only answer would be no, if governments all or nothing, the freeze accordingly, D loss, such a person, and uses the article, these are the individual, no person, supposed to class of all people, defines stuff in an article, uses such, but that possession includes subset alive, putting up possession, no to any object, new start to saying dangerous, village, or for transcendent engineering, seeing that 30% immense, it'll affect an example of your disease on truth, mosquito care, guards, just by low prevalence, participate, except dangerous items, 10%, but let's say, truth, affect by danger, affect by danger, morality, sign, universalized over, affect, morality, we regard to all moral agent, not be universalizable, their interpret is not predictable because the Sarah's card and the more card contradictory, so the visibility, loss substances, opportunity, cost of a neg, and prints, increasing marginal interest, counterplay, do both, sequence, counterplay, then play, it's not intrinsic, immediate sequential action, don't delay or sever, perfect counterplay corridor, is made a reverse returning state order from super quarter official, no computation grant, equals grant to error response, the result is an immediate PT, by results determined after reflection, say no quarter, but if I hidden advice of Pakistan, no authority or receiving had nuclear enables Pakistan, encourage Pakistan over, under filter transfer by value news to security calculus official, Spain, also response to India for secretary, acknowledged conspiracy, no evidence that says court orders are key to prevent, say collapse drop, it's enough from conflicts of factors that they can't solve, like IMF corruption, which they can't solve even post-plan because there will still be corrupt officials and jihadist terrorists, assholes terminal by preventing the impact of state collapse, they don't have evidence that says state collapse would be bad absent news, only we have evidence that says it would be bad if nukes were involved, they can't solve war, India sees it a rogue, and that insiders are fighting, which means they don't view it as credible, and could still first start causing our impact, second, new apps has no valuation, character, don't have disclosed new apps, one argument, innovation, only strategic benefits for breaking new friends, so makes street thinking, quick thinking, on your feet, it's good for different processing, B, topical checks, we didn't read generic text of the argument goes, oh wait, framework only file, should have cut a DA to your own app, framework only file, plan maximum desirability, impacts of random class, apps burden, the defense of the rest, they meet that without critical requirements, fairness on ways one, they rely on two, any difference arising from fair validation, C-based authority, two ballots, also impact that there's a topic reading losing, not tautological, maximizing fairness to good, anything else is uncritical, refusing to litigate in your own balance, a of microaggression, and the round discuss less percent truth, the protect data, is bad to test limit to context, competition first, double on gaslighting, returns to impact, no subterranean, filming, school rest of our lives, reading false arguments like warming goods, which is all, oh wait, link wrong, future is good because it keeps stuff, future death, which outweighs because it kills future generation, all cancel case because it doesn't declines, Pixar voted still that, and Pakistan leaders are native. They are.
Dropped indigenous wipeout GG's. Dwarves explicitly denotes that indigenous life is so bad that death would be preferable. They read no cards in this question, and we explicitly flagged them as needing to answer psychos out of the one at C, so them not doing so means that it's game over. Now, Horace says, quote, that liberal process do nothing but inevitable deaths, and so any hope left is in the complete destruction of the world to craft new forms of living that are not relying on transmutation of bodies into flesh, but that the process of biological life is so marked by suffering that it's unlivable. They preceded gratuitous violence is true and is, quote, metaphysical, and is created by an antagonism between the cellar master and red bodies. The warrant might not have been that great, but the one-air dropped ontology read card card 0, and also only assert extinction ways to prevent death, which is tautological, does not answer wipeout. Now, Polaris, the second card is flagged as needing to answer psychoanalysis. They have dropped several warrants why this is true. 1, the libidinal economy conceded that settler sovereignty has been sustained by things like deforestation, the disappearance of indigenous lives, and the creation of crisis. All these things sustained settler life. It means that it is an inevitable system that is self-reinforcing. It means that gratuitous violence is an inevitable factor of this process. Things like the Colombian Exchange and Standing Rock prove that this is not an event of the past, but a continual structure that makes this violence a continual process of the future. Look, you might not think this argument is that great, but it was flagged in the 1 and C as needing to be answered. They chose not to, and the card explicitly says that liberal process nothing, and the only hope left is in quote complete destruction of this world and a lack of reliance on the transmutation of bodies into flesh. It could not have been more obvious, and you should punish Ohm for not answering something that was clearly flagged as needing to be answered. Now, the Twitter will say we get you answers because we cannot predict it, but when the 1 and C told you quote need to answer psychoanalysis and then you chose not to, it's really on you, and the Twitter does not get you answers. Now, conceded, you should err heavily negative, and you should grant the negative terrors, then we have to throw things at the wall. The C6 versus new apps because it is important to rectify the times new. They also dropped app does not get prep versus new. They also dropped app does not get prep versus when they break new because it's necessary to rectify the skew. And if worst case, if you conclude they do get prep, at least do not get newness because the negative is so skewed behind the debate, you should err heavily negative. Look, not a great argument, but dropped. The only answer is distinction outweighs, which is answered because suffering outweighs it because suffering is infinitely bad. They have no answers to this, and the only alternative is destruction. Now, the alternative, kick it, not a floating pig, does not solve the app, so no violation. No 1 year 3 dropped, it's bad because it encourages late breaking debates in favor of the affirmative, takes the negative out of the game, and app theory is solved by putting preempts inside from 1AC, so all of their offense is solved, and all of their offense is 0. They deny offense on this page. Now, futurity stops future death, obviously, is tautological and assumes that future death is diable, but when you said that, quote, liberal process do nothing about deaths, and that any hope left would result in complete destruction of the world and the transmutation of bodies into flesh because of gratuitous violence, they cannot possibly win. That extinction outweighs because they've dropped an asterisk impact. Now, alt cannot solve, doesn't have to, kicking it, conditional key test the alpha multi angles perms are just competition, not a separate advocacy because that makes the app garner new advantages in the 1 AR, and they did not explain why it would be. So there's literally no out because all this tab solves now resolver impact. It's not a subjective formation impact, but it's an impact that is causal to the plan. Killing everyone is good because indigenous life is infinite suffering. Advantage 1. Only thing I need to answer here is eval through 1. Your problem is FlexPrep said that their interpretation is that the negative gets the 1 and C, the app gets the 1 error, that deletes the 1 and C means that the affirmative no advocacy statement, so neg on presumption because you're unclear what the affirmative voted for. Reciprocity was the standard of the 1 AR. This only logically makes sense if there's one speech for each team. So you should strike the 1 AC because they said that the 1 AR is necessary for reciprocity. Now CX was 2 and over FlexPrep. I asked, is that it? And you said yup. So I guess you only get the 1 AR. 1 AR is not an advocacy statement. The best case you go for a permutation of the counterplan. That's a test competition, not advocacy. And the 1 AR need to explain why permutations are an advocacy because the Twitter is far too new for it. Now, they said we get new answers to competition, but this does not justify perms on advocacy, only justifies new answers. The permutation to the counterplan competition on the page, we're not going for that argument, so they're not getting new answers, and delete the 1 AC because they explicitly said reciprocity means that they only get the 1 error and we get the 1 and C. Advantage 2. Impact doesn't matter if it's existential, app solves it, they don't have an asterisk impact, so no tiebreaker, so we've impact turned it in negative outweighs, topicality. No RVIs, it's bad, encourages baiting theory, did not warrant one, and there's no reason why they've got RVIs in the debate when they broke new. All this is defense, will concede reasonability, takes out any app theory, and at best takes out an RVI if there was one topicality, the counterplay. Kick it was conditional, key to test the alpha multiple angles, perms, or test competition. Explain above. There's really not that much else that needs to be said. They dropped indigenous wipeout, is flagged as needing to be answered, it chose to read 0 cards on it, and then, I guess, delete the 1 AC because 1 AR key to reciprocity.
I bet you thought it was rough, but there's 3 issues. 1, I'll concede no 1 error theory. It takes out evaluate the debate after the 1 error. The 2 error extended no 1 error theory. Evaluate the 1 error was a 1 error theory argument, which was jurisdiction strike as per the as per no 1 error theory argument that the 2 error extended, which means it's totally irrelevant. Either way, the 1 AC did the 1 error did have an advocacy test. The permutation to both imply the existence of an advocacy test that the 1 error was implicitly extending offense defense. We will win. We will impact or wipeout. At worst, we're impacting wipeout, which the 1 AC introduced as grounds for negation, which means that it's totally irrelevant because the 1 NC said that wipeout was good. The 1 error said that wipeout was bad, which as per the spark stuff that I'll extend in a second, which means that at worst we still have offense, given that the 2 error extended indigenous that's good, so we'll win that or wipeout good. So we'll answer that by winning that wipeout is bad, which means that there's no risk with this offense either way. Remember, the 2 error extended that you should reject 1 error theory arguments, eval after 1 error, obviously a theory argument because the justification were theoretical, which means as per Sid's arguments you should strike this argument. Now the K. Tech impact turns the entirety of the wipeout page. The frame is that we have a P risk which they have mishandled. Technology is good. It enables space colonization, which unlocks 112 million lives across the cosmos, deletes any impact they have. Even speeding up space travel by 1 second, rewards us with 3.5 quadrillion years of human life. Drop, flips, try or die. It caps every risk on Earth. Read our card after round. It says that we can continue to live in space. We can preserve humanity. We have more resources, which is something our 1 year card and the 1 year impact card said, which obviously would solve threats on Earth. The reason why indigenous ontology or like why wipeout is bad for natives is because they suffer right now. Our card says that resources would exist, which means that people live in pleasure machines. Either way, don't need to win this because they also drop that people create digital minds, which is an external impact. The Greece card says that digital sentience, conscious AI would all get created. That AI would feel pleasure. Ontology doesn't apply to it because it's a digital mind, not something we can be choose to, nor something we can be liberal economy towards, which means these are external impacts of the 1 year flag in the Greece card, which you said read after round because it says all the things I just said it did. Now, you should also ear heavily aft. The tuner was clear that the 1 year might not have answered the word psychoanalysis, but the 1AC did not flag wipeout in a tag, which means that you should strike, which means that you should be lenient towards mutual responses. Even if I didn't answer psycho was not flagged as just like wipeout in the 1NC, which means the tutor should have leniency. You should also read their evidence after the round. It does not say death is good. It says that society, i.e. Western society, might be slightly bad, but it gets nowhere close to saying that indigenous death is good, nor that killing everybody in a nuclear hellscape would be a good idea, which obviously outweighs because it kills all people in a painful hellscape. Yes, we didn't say the only one was futurity. We said on the case that nuclear war would cause massive firestorms that burn everybody alive, obvious form of pain. That outweighs their impact because it means that we have infinite pain right now through nuclear firestorms, and we prevent appearance, which necessarily outweighs. The tuner asserted Esperus did not explain it, nor compared to our impact. Our impact generally outweighs because at worst their wipeout impact just concerns indigenous individuals, whereas our impact applies to everybody, including like Indian people, Pakistani people, etc., which means it applies to literally everybody. And our P-risk impact is digital AI, which outweighs by the quadrillions. Oh, also the 1 year at the end of the 1 year, we said that Pakistan's leaders were not native. Even if this is a claim, it at least proves that not everybody is a native, which means not everybody should die from extinction, which means that not everybody should die from extinction, which is an implicit answer to the ontology claim. They don't have digital minds, which is what you should vote on, given that ontology can't apply to non-humans, as per the tuner. Great debate.